Welcome to the Starting Over podcast. I'm your host, Edward Shelton, aka Dark Logos, and this is the show where we look at the strategies, tactics, and mechanics behind the game of heroclix. Whoo! It's been a bit. Okay, we're back in the new year. Things are going. Time to get it popping. We got a lot of different things to look at, and I'm just going to talk about a bunch of stuff off the top of my head. And we're just going to see how the show goes. It's going to be a little bit of catch-up, a little bit of future casting, a little bit of analysis. So we're going to have a nice mixed bag here. First things first, leading into this new year, I need to get rid of some stuff, like a lot of stuff. It was dictated from on high of the Grand Authority that I must make room for all the other heroclix that I have obtained. So, I will be giving away heroclix. Now here's the catch. I'm going to have to ban Mr. Corey Matthews because he makes me laugh too hard and it's sort of cheating. And I want to give other people a chance. So, sorry, Corey. It's nothing personal. I just got to ban you from this competition because you seem to win whenever I ask for a story. So and also you got something out the last two, so I gotta spread the wealth without feeling guilty later. So pretty much here's how it's gonna go. Last year we had the Gamma Grinch giveaway. I also had the Origins giveaway. Now we're gonna step it up a notch. We're gonna step it up a notch. We're gonna call it Dark Logos' Chaff Bag of Goodness. You need to give me a story on how you're going to troll people with the heroclix that I'm going to give you. Now, it sounds a little mean, but like the stuff that I'm giving you goes like all the way back to Armor Wars. So a lot of this stuff is uncarded. There might even be some crisis in there. You know, I don't even know. You know, and to sweeten the pot, I'm going to say this. I'm going to give it away to 2 to 3 lucky people. Okay, 2 to 3, depending on how many awesome stories I get. And then I'm going to throw some random goodness in there. So it's not all crap. There'll be something else good in there. So anyway, as I said, this is the This is the contest. How are you going to troll with yeah, here we go. The contest name is How Are You Going to Troll with Dark Logos' Bag of Coal. So send me a email at startingoverpodcast@gmail.com. That's startingoverpodcast@gmail.com if you wish to opine and enter this contest. And make sure you tagline the email How I'm Going to Troll with Dark Logos' Bag of Coal. So yeah, so that's the first thing. All right, next up, they announced the Justice League teleporter, and they haven't showed us what it does, but we could pretty much assume that's going to work somewhat similar to the round table. You may be able to get a random power or something, you know, on there. They might have learned some lessons from the round table, but here's my raw thoughts about it. I personally think that this is going to be another one of WizKids like, hey, look, we pushed booster sales. We were able to get people out there to events and having increased value for the booster. The downside is that the cost of the booster is definitely going to go up like a lot. I think also you're going into the summer in which you have not Age of Ultron, Civil War. So you're looking at possibly like this current DC set and then having to wait through, you know, con season, pick up another, you know, set of cards, and then maybe even go all the way into the end of 2016 to get your last few sets of cards, even going into 2017. That's a long time to accumulate a bunch of cards. That's a real long time. Whereas with the round table, you were able to go like Avengers Assembled, boom, got it. Age of Ultron, got it. Nick Fury, got it. Like you got it knocked out. You know, 2 standard sets, 1 OP set. And it really is more WizKid's fault for not thinking it through and saying, yeah, this should have been a year of a DC summer event. Instead of trying to be like, we're going to tie in into the Marvel movie. And let's be honest, WizKids is getting some direct cues from Marvel. So, yeah, I'll just leave it at that. All right. I think overall the concern that I have is this: you play a big tent pole, and you play 2 of these cards because they're going to be able to be used, you know, normally like the cards are, and then you're going to have one of those cards be a Shield level 7 card, and the other card is going to be a Superman card, and then you're going to summon in, you know, 250 point Superman, and then you're going to summon in Nick Fury, and then it's just like, just right there should be a concern from anyone. Nick Fury and Superman on the same team, and don't forget about the Flash. I could summon in KC Flash for a turn, or, you know, I don't think you could do Dark Flash, but there's a lot of things in the back catalog that makes you sort of say, ugh. And when you go into Golden Age, yeah, good luck. Good luck avoiding the trolling on that. I summon KC Superman. Earth 2 Superman. Like, ugh. You know, Kingdom Come Green Lantern. Yeah. Yeah, just love that, buddy. Just love that. Anyway, so I don't know. My other concern is if we end up with the corresponding Javelin for the Quinjet, because I think the Javelin is DC, right? And it does almost like what the Quinjet does. Then yeah, I'm sort of like, you know, WizKids is running out of ideas here. So there's some, like I said, there's some problems here. Also, just the cost, because if they spend the amount of cards that they did for Marvel, I mean, they're going to be digging deep, but really, like, like let's just look at our Green Lanterns, for example. We got Hal, we got John, we got Kyle. Okay, just right there, there's 3 Green Lanterns. How are you going to, you know, diversify that? Okay, with their card abilities. Then you have Superman, Wonder Woman. I mean, well, Superman's going to be like, I can see through stealth, and you get the Superman TA for a turn in toughness or invulnerability. And then they're going to be Wonder Woman. You get toughness and energy shield deflection for a turn. And let's see, Batman is going to be like, you get outwit in the Batman team ability because they have to be just a little OP. You know, stuff like that. But you already know what's coming. You know, you might get the Flash isn't going to give you hypersonic speed because they'll be darned before they give that out in a card. Like your whole entire team has hypersonic speed. Oh, hell no, they're not going to let that happen. They'll probably be like, you get perplex in like full move charge or something like that. Yeah, you'll probably get full move charge. They would never give you hypersonic speed. And if they do, that card is like a $25 to $35 card. But you could start looking at like going through your standard lineup. Eventually, you know, you could say like, well, Mr. Miracle and Big Barda and, you know, Firestorm, he was on there at one time, and Jesse Quick was a Justice League team member. You know, if you're going to go back and talk about the minuscule people like, you know, Triathlon and Tigra, you know, so you're going to get some minute people that were on the Justice League, you know, and that can be a problem. Because we could see like 50 Justice League cards, and you know, that could definitely be frustrating. Definitely considering some iterations of the Justice League, you have Superman, you have Supergirl on there to take the place of Superman. You also have Steel on the Justice League. You know, how do you differentiate him from Batman or even like Mr. Terrific, who I think was on there for a brief period of time? I'm not quite sure. It might have been the cartoon show that I might have gotten that confused with. But you can sort of catch my drift. Now, the question is like, how bad will WizKids milk it? And I gotta say, they're probably gonna milk it like a dairy cow. And so I know that seems a little negative to start off, but the projection comes in is WizKids is going to do something to distinguish the teleporter from the round table. The question is what, since we don't know right now. But I'm doubting that the ID cards or the teleporter cards or whatever are going to be that much different from the ID cards. So just, something to think about as we move forward. Rock has already, indicated those things are tactics, so that's great. When we start going into con season, I don't know if we'll have that resource ready to go by con season. I think we are. I think it's like the case bonus for buying a case for Brave and the Bold. So it might be worth it to pick up a case if you're a case buyer. For me, I usually just buy that off of eBay and, get my money that way, save my money that way. Yeah. Anyway, sort of going on. With the new year in particular, I had a great interview with Patrick Yapago, and I don't know if it's up on Realms yet because I submitted it the other day. But I would definitely tell everybody to go listen to it. Not that I'm pandering or anything like that, because I really don't have to at this stage for the quarry. But it's usually the other way around. I usually use the quarry to pander to have people listen to Starting Over podcast. But pretty much if you check out that episode, there's a lot of great stuff that Patrick sort of gives insight to, gives there it goes, gives insight into about being a heroclix player in this current meta, and also about running Majestics. So there are some like really huge benefits to listening to that interview, and I've listened to it a couple of times in editing, and I still am gleaning things out of it. So it's a really in-depth interview. Yeah, it's a really in-depth interview. Also, if you want me to start doing interviews back on Starting Over podcast, let me know in the comments below. I sort of just take a direct feedback, and also you can email me as well, because I like that too. But I have noticed, yeah, this show has primarily been about internal commentary. I haven't, since I've started the quarry, I really haven't interviewed people on Starting Over podcast. So I think my last guest was, like, seriously, it's probably been over a year and a half. Probably. I can't remember completely. I can't remember completely my last guest on here. So that's a little sad on my part, but that's just how it goes. Okay. And is there any other like sort of news things that are coming up or that came out? I think I previously talked about the colossal size change, so that's not really that big of a deal. Yeah. So let's do just for time's sake, let's look at this wonderful little piece of Helibice tech called the Brainiac Skull Ship, and looking at the integrated and slave circuits, and we got it confirmed that it existed. We knew that it existed. We knew WizKids was sort of BSing us. It was like, oh, it's canceled, and it's like, no, it's not canceled. It's just that you knew it was going to kick your sales in the gonads if people knew this other one existed that was going to be retail friendly. So anyway, they're being different helps, and the paint coloring of the other one looks pretty good. But let's start breaking some things down and looking at the skull ship again. And I may have touched on it before in the past, but I think there's some interesting developments here that we can possibly look at. First off, Point values. Point values right now for the Skull Ship, in my opinion, for the integrated is a little high for really. It's a lot high for what you get. Um, you're talking, almost 500 points to start off on your high level, and your low level for a few amount of clicks is 125. And I just really can't get down with that real easily. To pay 125 points for 5 clicks, that's ludicrous. And I'm not talking about the wrapper. Then, your slave circuits, you're starting on the other Brainiac Skull Ship. Uh, its high end isn't that bad, and its low end isn't that bad. Like, I feel like you get a lot more. When you start with slave circuits, you're at 225 on your high end, and then you go all the way down to your low end, and I think this says 200. 200. Nope. I think they have them like misordered here. 'Cause I see, yeah, I think they have them like misordered here. Because it's like 75 points is the low end for a couple of clicks. No, hold on, wait. Why is it going in the opposite direction? Okay, I guess it's 50 points. 50 points on the low end for 4 clicks. Now, there's a couple of things to be mindful of. Like, this is a vehicle. Okay. Um, I mean, for the slave circuits, it's a vehicle, and I think the integrated is not a vehicle. Okay, so the integrated is not a vehicle. The slave circuits is a vehicle. Okay, the slave circuits starting off at the 225, getting access to the drone dial could make it a little bit better. And then let me bring up that drone dial here. It And there we go. Okay, getting access to that drone dial could be a huge, boon to it. But it's like it's a slow build up. But anyway, let's look at the traits. Skull Ship, AI or slaved circuit. When building your force, choose either Skull Ship, Brainiac integrated, or Skull Ship slave circuits. Dial and the other is not used. You may pay an additional 25 points to use the drone dial, and the tentacle dial is always used. Now, having the Quint team ability is great, so that means you get willpower for your Brainiac integrated. And it also helps out considering that your slave ship circuits now has willpower since it can't get access to Indomitable. That's a big deal. Okay. Also, you can't be standard out with it, but Nick Fury and Orange Lantern Power Battery and Peggy Carter for the win. Okay, next up you have hover mode. Skull Ship may occupy different squares, may occupy squares of different elevations, which used to be hot stuff and not so much hot stuff anymore. But sort of sucks. You're paying for that in the cost after WizKids errated it. So that's I don't know how much that added on to the price. Uh, I don't know, maybe 10 points, and then they just rounded it out, so you might actually be getting it slightly for free. I don't know. Then you have Red Sun Torpedo. And you only get Red Sun Torpedo on the integrated. You don't get Red Sun Torpedo on the slave circuits. And this is a really big deal because the Red Sun Torpedo says the Skull Ship Brainiac integrated can use energy explosion. When he does, each other hit character has its defense and damage powers countered until your next turn. So you can pretty much, once you hit, your opponent can't get super senses impervious or anything, or invincible or whatever. But it does say countered. So if they have something like, of course, quintessence, or they can't be countered, have, a specific power countered, then it doesn't work. So that's the downside. And this is my problem with this. You already had Orange Lantern Battery in the design chain. And you didn't design this so it works like that. It also makes it so that it has to attack soft targets. It can't really go toe to toe for big targets, and when you're paying as much as you're paying for it, this power is essential, definitely considering that you don't ever start with this power. Now, I can understand WizKid's perspective. They try to start you off with Psyblast or Pulse Wave for a majority of your integrated point values, and that's fine. I understand that. But it's really not good enough, considering that this energy explosion is way better. Okay, it's way better. And you remember, with energy explosion, you get to do this effect on all the splash targets. So you can do 1 damage on all the splash targets, because God forbid that they give you actually multiple target damage and able to replace your targeted damage with the tentacle dial. Now the tentacle dial allows you to increase your targets, so you can like multiply your splash damage if you want to, but really, it's no. Just having played Brainiac tons of times, the standard Brainiac, the con Brainiac, it's you have to have a better game plan than that. All right. So as we look at that integrated, the integrated overall is just a hot mess. It's a pure hot mess, but it's got a defensive power, so we got to look at that. Power Reclamation Field. Brainiac Skull Ship, Brainiac Integrated can use Energy Shield Deflection, not bad. Impervious, not bad, but give Skull Ship Brainiac Integrated a free action and choose an adjacent opposing character of 50 points or more. Deal that character 1 penetrating damage and heal the Skull Ship Integrated of 1 damage. Now here's the thing. You have this click for 2 clicks. So let's say you heal for 1 for this free damage. Now you're on your second to last click. You're hoping you don't die. You got someone right next to you. Your energy shield deflection is completely bunk. And if they punch you or exploit weakness you or whatever, you're dead. GG. And you have plasticity, so they can't get away. All right. Then let's just say you get up, to that click 16. Then you're like, okay, I heal again. Now I have steel energy. Okay, so you heal for free from that. Then let's just say you hit somebody with your wonderful 10 attack. You got steel energy again. Okay, cool. So you can colossal push and try to do something and pray you hit. Because if you don't, that's going to be a problem. You could try to start this energy siphoning, thing over and over and over again. But here's the thing with the 1 penetrating damage, if they have invincible or something that will somehow reduce penetrating damage, or they can't be dealt penetrating damage, this little power isn't as great because it doesn't allow you to eat away at your opponent easily. And then it's a real huge risk, definitely at the end of the dial. Now, you also can get it on click 8 and on click 3, but at that point in the game, it's a lot. It's really risky. Another big problem with the integrated is that there are points where you have a naked defense, and that's not good. That's not good at all. Not for how many points you're paying for this sucker. So there's a lot of risk involved. A ton of risk involved for this character. I don't see it as a better Brainiac. I know some people have touted it. It's like, oh, look, it does crazy damage. I'm like, give me the standard Brainiac, the con Brainiac with the cities dial, and I can fight this one head on for the amount of points that are invested. I can just anyway. The other thing is they hadn't learned their lesson that They still haven't given it the freaking robot keyword, which makes no sense whatsoever. But I digress. But let's go ahead and look at the Skull Ship slave circuits. Now, first off, as a trait, it says pilot. The meat interface is more uncomfortable. Prerequisite robot keyword. Now this is nice. When the Skull Ship would be dealt damage from colossal stamina ability, roll a d6 on a result of 4 through 6. Don't deal the unavoidable damage. So you have a 50-50 chance of not taking unavoidable damage from colossal pushing. This is huge. This is huge. Why is that? Why is this a huge thing, Dark Logos? Simple. Because you are able to put a 30-point Ultron drone to maintain your damage stats and your attack stats and your damage powers and your attack powers. That's it. Like, and he has the ability to make it so for 30 points more, you don't have to. You have a 50% chance to ignore colossal pushing damage. I'll take that. I'll definitely take that. Okay. Then we move on down to the second trait about autopilot. That this character can maybe given actions without a pilot, but it takes damage. Blah. Yeah. Then you have the tentacle dial, tentacle claws trait, and this is shared between both modes. Give the Skull Ship a power action and make a close combat attack targeting up to the close number, which the close number goes from 5 down to 3 of characters within 3 squares in line of fire. Now that part I don't like because stealth figures can actually hide from this. Each hit character is dealt 3 damage. And now this part here is okay because this is you're dealt 3 damage, but it's not locked. So you can get like crit hits off and stuff like that. But the other problem that comes in is that the effects of like the Chase Wonder Woman and Rainbow Raider and all the other stuff, that would also affect the amount of damage that is dealt. So it's having that damage locked would have been better, but let me rephrase it. It has its advantages and disadvantages. Then you have tentacle beams. The ship has a number of targets equal to the target's dial, and the targets go from, of course, 5 to 3. All right, let's go on. With the tentacle dial, try and rip off a tentacle. It says when the click number of the Brainiac integrated or slave dial is not within the range indicated by the click number, immediately turn the tentacle dial to it until it is. So it's pretty much saying just make sure you line up the tentacle dial with the click numbers. That's all it's really saying. All right, now the drone dial. This is where the specialness comes in. Okay, spawn a Brainiac. Give Skull Ship a power action to place adjacent a drone bystander token. If the Skull Ship is in unpiloted mode, this is a double power action. So this is bad. So this makes you really want to make sure you have a pilot. For each opposing character, Skull Ship damages with a close combat attack. After action resolve, place adjacent a drone bystander token. You can't have more than 8 of the drones on the map. So pretty much, yeah. Then you go on, it says linking AI nodes. Drones have the combat values and possess the standard powers indicated on the drone dial when the Skull Ship is KO'd. All of the drones, it KO all the drones. After any actions resolve, turn the drone dial to a click number equal to the number of drones on the map. This ability can't be ignored. So the cool thing is you can sort of, crank up and build more and more drones. Your sweet spot technically is somewhere between 3 and 6. Getting 8 drones out, I don't really see that happening realistically. And if you're able to get 7 out, then great. Okay. Now the drone dial is nice because already you can sort of see that if we look at the skull ship slave circuits, it's rather weak. A little invincible up front, then some impervious. The damage values are okay, but you're going charge, running shot. Now the hypersonic speed, 12 attack, 4 damage on click 5, that's probably like your best click, but you have no way to sustain that, and there's too many figures out there that can cripple this figure down real fast. And then with the slave circuits, starting at, I think it's like 225. You're paying 25 points for the drones. That's 250. Another 30 points for the Ultron drone. That's 280. And then you're just, only thing that you have left to do is like, oh, well, I could play a round table, for 20 points, or I can just put a Green Lantern battery on the field and just limit the amount of free action my opponent has and hope that I can pull a prob out my butt, from the lantern. I mean, that's really it. So in a 300-point game, this is really not the best thing when you're really trying to get something out of the slave circuits. I mean, even if you go lower, like let's be honest, going from click 4 to 13, yes, you start off with pulse wave and running shot, and that's great, but you have that one click of pulse wave. There is no sustain on this sucker whatsoever. No regen, nada. So it's a problem. I mean, even if you go on and say like, oh, look, I have a Green Lantern battery dark logo, so it can heal the skull ship. Yeah, that's cool. That's really great. You can do that now. But, it's a big but, and I cannot lie. You're at a disadvantage because you're either cranking out drones and trying to tie people up with those drones, or you are putting yourself in the situation where you're hyper dependent on the hypersonic speed, and that's not that good. So with 4 clicks of hypersonic speed, and it's like, ooh, this is rough. So you're trying to create a situation that works best for this figure, and I really I feel for people who try. I really feel for people who try to make the best out of this situation, because even if you go down lower and just say like, okay, Dark Logos, I start with the hypersonic speed at 125, like I just go straight for it. It's like, okay, cool. That's not bad. You can build around that, and then tack on, tack on the 25 points, and, for the drone dial if you want to, and you have a nice, okay hypersonic speed attacker with a pilot that you need to put in there, but it's not the greatest, and then you really can't build up on the drones. Like at that stage with the drone dials, you're like, yeah, I'm capping out around 3 drones as my optimal. 4 if I'm lucky to live that long. Because if I see that skull ship, I'm like, yeah, this is a soft one, and I'm just going to be like 1, 2, dead. And, with Super Scroll or something, So is this worth your money? And I would say it's worth your money if you feel that the pilots that you can bring in is going to make it worth it. And I really do mean that. If you feel that the pilots that you can bring in is really going to make this ship worth it. So like, for example, like, oh, I'm going to put Modam in the ship. Oh, that's cool. Modam in the ship would be awesome. There's different advantages with that. Okay, all right, let's look at another cool figure you could put in the ship. Okay, we could put Aleph in the ship at 75 points. Again, we're talking larger point games at this stage. We can put, let's see, piloting. Thanosai can pilot. Nimrod can pilot. Armin Zola for just the giggles. I mean, you get your pulse wave and pretty much permanent pulse wave and outwit. You can't have a spider bot pilot, unfortunately. Deathlock can pilot. White King can pilot. Amazo, thematically more correct. Of course, you can have Brainiac himself pilot, but yeah, you can't have Brimstone pilot. And I'm just looking at modern age. Yeah, you can have Computo pilot, but that sucks. So there's really not a lot that you can do in terms of pilot. But let's look at another sort of disadvantage is that you're playing a robot, and your robot has to be cosmic if you want to try to make any sort of theme team, or your robot needs to be Kryptonian or Legion of Doom, which I'm like, yeah, you're just playing another Brainiac. So it's a fun concept, and trust me, I'm a guy that has played around with a lot of unorthodox tech, but for this to be worth it, you really need to have something else that's going to buff this like to all get out, because it just doesn't work. It doesn't work on any of the dials, and you're better off with the con exclusive. You just are, because let's just put it like this. There are only a handful of figures that I believe that can make either of these dials worth it. And one of those figures is Gizmo, because he can give all those drones the power. So I think that's pretty good. I know a lot of people are trying to get a hold of this figure just for collector's sake, and go ahead, get it if you can, and enjoy it, play with it. I just don't think immediately it has a lot of uses in the meta. Definitely when we start going back into constructed standard 300 point modern, I think there's a lot of problems that come with this figure. It's just not stable. It's just not stable enough. You're going to have to find some way of manipulating the low ends, and then making those few clicks really survivable, or they provide the type of distraction needed for you to do whatever you're trying to do. So just a thought. Maybe even no, you can't do well, you could try that Wonder Woman. No, it's not even worth it. I was gonna say chase Wonder Woman with this on the low dial, and it's like, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. Anyway, let's move on to a little of what's inside your head, and we're going to start off the new year talking about moderating negativity and dealing with personal relationships. And I've had a lot of rough interactions lately with certain individuals not respecting personal space and even personal intellectual space, and then sort of can't give it as can't take it like they give it. So it's interesting looking back at my last few days in particular. But I would definitely say sort of, maneuvering through this new year, and something personally that I've been trying to work on for a while. It's just, try to move away from negativity, excessive commenting, always sort of looking at the downside of things. Statistically, it actually shortens your life. You're more likely to die earlier than someone who has an optimistic just outlook. So positivity helps you live longer, so you can play more heroclix. But not only that, eventually, I've sort of taken observation on how negativity impacts people, and there's several different spheres I've looked at with different individuals, and how those individuals impacted those fears of people, those spheres of people, and how the negativity in the conversation ends up moving more and more negative until sort of this outward, vehement, insidious nastiness just becomes commonplace. There was something from one of the books I was reading with the willpower instinct, and it said it gave an interesting case study, and the case study was this: they had a situation where I think people were like dropping something off at a location, and they didn't know that the location was like a staged, study location. So what they did was they had one location initially for a period of time was very clean and upkept. And while it was clean and upkept, there was very little trash or litter that was in the area. Okay. Then they let the area become unkept. They let it become dirty. And what happened was quite interesting. This location that was, completely fine turned into a dump really fast because people felt, since the place was dirty, that it enabled them to litter. So people would just not, paying attention, just spit their gum out, throw the trash wrapper on the ground or whatever. So it's interesting that from the study they pointed out was when the bar is lowered, people lower themselves. They don't necessarily raise themselves. And that's an interesting sort of little analysis. And you can't, completely avoid everybody that's negative all the time. But you can sort of determine, your levels of interaction, but you also can determine how that influences you. You determine if you're going to get mad. You determine if you're going to get frustrated. You determine if you're going to continue, dealing, with that individual on certain principles. I had a teacher when I was doing chaplaincy training, and he told me something interesting, and I was like, wow, I never really thought you could do this. He said, he has emotional frameworks for dealing with people, and he noticed how he couldn't talk with his family on certain topics. This man is like in his 50s. He's talking about interacting with his mom and his dad, And so what he said something that was sort of profound to me. He said, Mom, Dad, I'll talk to you about everything under the sun except Jimmy. I can't control Jimmy, and I don't want to talk about Jimmy. And whenever they brought up Jimmy, he kept restating the same thing. It's like, Mom, Dad, I'll talk to you about everything under the sun but Jimmy. I can't control Jimmy, and I don't want to deal with it. And what was interesting is he pointed out, like, over a period of time, all the negativeness that was coming out from them talking about his brother or whoever it was sort of dissipated, and that the relationship between him and his parents got better because everything was relating on terms that was, I would say, more concrete, where the annoying pain body isn't there. And there's some things like if people have personality traits that's just annoying as fire, you can just be like, yo, man, I'll deal with you on these other things, but I can't deal with you at that. And if they just keep going, you just walk off. You just don't show up. And then they're like, well, why didn't you show up? Or why didn't you do this and that and the other thing? It's just like, I told you, like, these are my emotional boundaries. For me, I have intellectual boundaries. If I'm in the middle of thinking, that's a very important time for me. Violating that, it's very disrespectful to me. Very disrespectful. If I bring you in on that moment and ask for your input, then I ask for your input. But, if I'm thinking about something, trying to process this, and then, completely just bombarded with idiocy, then yeah, I'm like, yeah, I told you where I'm at and you're going to keep messing with me. Like, no, that's disrespectful. And some people, and this is just another relational thing that I've ended up studying over time, is like, for most men on average prefer to be respected more than loved. Not everybody. It's usually it's like a 65-35 to 60-40 split, where most men prefer to be respected. They don't care if that you love them. They rather prefer that, you know, they're respected by you and seen in a good light, or at least, you know, given certain courtesies. And so I look at my sort of perspective at the same way. Like, in the majority of my relationships that I've had, I'm like, yeah, I just prefer the chick just respect me than, you know, feel head over heels in love with me all the dang time. Because I know, shoot, you live with me, that's some unlovable crap you got to deal with at times. But I at least want you to respect what I say, instead of be like, I love him, but he's an idiot, I'm not going to listen to a darn word he says. Like, no, I'd rather someone respect me than love me. But that's me personally. So there's certain boundaries that have to be maintained in relationships, and whether it's, you know, interpersonal or business, you know, you can do that. Now, you can't tell your boss, like, I'll talk to you about everything but the TPS report. You know, you can't do that. But you can try to lead things away into, you know, a more positive light, and sort of say like, hey, okay, cool. We had to talk about the TPS report. Here's the things I feel are beneficial with this report. Here's some things I feel that, you know, we might want to look at. You can try guiding the conversation. If the person doesn't want to guide through the conversation, then you can just sort of write things out as best you can. And then after that, you just, you know, you distance yourself as best as you can from the individual. Definitely after you try to make it clear where you stand. If people don't follow, you know, the intellectual and emotional clues you leave, then you just at a point in time just like, you know, you're getting off on your own jollies and stuck in your own world and not paying attention to the social sphere around you. You know, and then sometimes it just means like, you know, might be time for you to leave these social spheres. There was a minister I used to listen to a lot, and he said this. He had a group of friends. It was a husband and wife, that he and his wife would meet with every Sunday after church. And they would talk, and the majority of what they were talking about was negative things that were going wrong, either in their personal lives or in the church. And he noticed how negative he was becoming because of this one couple. And so he started to also see how that was also how it was affecting his marriage. And more negative critiques were coming up in he and his wife's relationship. So what he ended up doing, he started trying to make the interaction more positive. That failed. He tried, you know, like I said, guiding the conversation, and it failed. And then eventually he had a conversation with his wife, and he pointed this out to her, and then she sort of came to the same conclusion about how the negativity had impacted their personal relationship. And so they started distancing themselves from that couple. And eventually, you know, because the behavior didn't change, they just stopped interacting with that couple. Now, that's not mean you don't be civil to people and you don't talk to people, but then you just make a decision to say like, hey, I'm not going to interact with you on beyond what I need to, you know, or beyond what I desire to, just because of this behavior is not congruent with where I'm going. It doesn't line up, you know. And so some people might say, like, you know, you're telling me that I should be more exclusive and cut people out of my life. Like, you know, yeah, sometimes you got to. You know, even some people that's been around with you for a long time. And I know that's like, you know, how can you do that? Like, truthfully, that's how you grow. And I know recently for me, having read a lot more book, or rephrase that, listened to a lot of different books, I started to realize like, okay, I've limited myself in my belief structure and my thought structure, more along the lines of there's a lot of things I said I couldn't do, and I stopped following like, oh man, it'd be awesome if I did this. Let me see if I can do that. And let me just sort of put it to you like this. I used to go out more and try to get like interviews for the show in particular. And at first, when I first started doing them, I was the only person that interviewed world champions for heroclix. I was the first. You know, you can hear it, listen to it, and all the other stuff. You know, go back and listen to my early interviews with Dan and Alex and George. You know, look at their timestamp and then start looking at their appearances on other places. They were on my show, on the show first. But when it came to sort of expanding, you know, some other different formats, I'm like, oh, you know, it'd be cool if I did this. You know, I sort of stopped doing that. And even with some things personally, I've stopped doing that. Definitely, I have, like I've said before, like I've had several book ideas that just sort of sit on the computer. Like I end up getting like 6 or 7 chapters through, and then it's like, I'm sort of done. You know, and don't stick with it, because at some point in time, in the back of my head, there's this guy that says like, nobody wants to listen to this heady stuff anymore. You know, you know, no one wants to listen to a theological, allegorical story tale. You know, no one, you know, that's a little bit more mature, but not Game of Thrones. You know, so there's things that come up, and so dealing with, you know, my personal negativity is interesting, because I would say definitely talking to my father, we would say it would be probably genetic, just a tad, because that's something that he too is battling. And listening to my father sort of overcome degrees of his negativity has been, I wouldn't say a personal progress of myself, but it has been enlightening to see how my progenitor has thought things through. So, yeah. Anyway, like I said, today's show is a little bit all over the place. I really did want to try to give a smattering of Catchup to, you see what I did there, the pun? You see that? Anyway, I did try to give a smattering of Catchup to make sure that everything is caught up, and you know, we can start the new year fresh. I am going to try to go back to weekly. The nephew first Christmas was awesome. It was great. He fell asleep before the presents were unlocked. He fell asleep on Uncle's stomach, so that was cool. That was fun. The kid is like 8 months old, and he's like 1.5 feet long. Like, the kid is huge. Like, gosh, he's going to be super tall. Anyway, but I enjoy Christmas. New Year's was partied on the 31st. Partied on the 1st as a mistake. Too tired to party on that Saturday, and just slept. I slept 12 hours Saturday. It was ridiculous. Like, I was that tired, and I don't drink, so yeah, that just baffled a lot of people's mind when I told them that. Like, you drank too much, didn't you? And I was like, I don't drink. I drink water. Like, the most I did was drink a Coke, like, the entire time. So anyway, that's it. You can follow me on Twitter at StartOverPod. It came from outer space and told me, man, 2015 was good. Let's see if we can top that jam. And you can follow my random musings. Occasionally I might put something interesting. Twitter is like a burst for me. Like, one time I'll get like this bug in me is like, yeah, time for Twitter. And then the rest of the time I'm like, I hate Twitter. And then I'm like, time for Twitter. So, I don't know. Would you call it a side piece? I don't know. Side chick. Twitter's my side chick. Okay, then you can email me at startingoverpodcast@gmail.com. So I guess that'd be my main chick, because I'm always like, come on, baby, let's go out. Anyway, so you can email me there, and tell me, like, hey, what for the new year, what type of things are you moving towards to become a better HeroClix player? Even more so, what do you want to hear on the show? Direct feedback is always important. I know when we sort of broke down that team previously, I got some interesting feedback off of that, so there you go. You can check out the blog. Mostly the blog has the buy list up, so just saying, like, hey, go buy these figures. It's on the blog. And that's startingoverpodcast.blogspot.com. And you can donate to the show. Everything goes towards making the show better, doing giveaways and other cool stuff. So, yeah. And, oh, yeah, buy my shirt. You can get a Phoenix Nest shirt or a Starting Over Podcast shirt. Either or. Support the team, Phoenix Nest. Yay. Or, support me, Starting Over Podcast, or do both by buying a shirt. And then you too can have other cool HeroClix gear when you wear it at cons. So, like, if you see me at a con, I think this is what I'm going to do. I think if you see me at a con or a big event and you have like a Phoenix Nest shirt, like, I got to do like a funny pose for you or something with you in the picture. That is, you have to be in the picture also doing the funny pose. So, yep, that's it. All right. Like I said, definitely check out the newer Quarry with the interview with Patrick. I know you all will definitely enjoy it. A lot of deep steak eating, heavy protein meat thought that's there. And like I said, I'm coming back to being weekly. Warframe. Been playing Warframe. I'm at a point where I can start weaning myself off Warframe just a bit. And in all honesty, Fallout 4 has been quite boring. Like, I feel like I can't progress like I want to, or I progress too fast and I messed it up because I'm almost level 12 and I can't go anywhere without dying. And I've seen a good chunk of the places on the map around Diamond City. So it's like there's nothing left to kill there. Everything's sort of like stable, and it's either the Raiders are BS. Okay, so either there's like 80 Raiders and you're with your companion and you're like, well, crap, of course I'm low on ammo because I'm still at the beginning of the game. I'm in my first 20 hours. Of course I'm going to be low on ammo and money. So I got to melee all these suckers, with the back of a gun and stuff. Okay. Or you got super mutants just popping up. And then you got to like freaking, flip, roll, hide, get around the corner, shoot them, and lead them into like a minefield, literally a minefield to get them half dead, to continue shooting them in the head. Now, I've gotten to the point now where I'm good enough at shooting. I don't need VATS, so I don't need that crutch. But gosh, it sucks. I don't know, like, do I have to walk around the power armor? Because I'm trying not to walk around in the power armor. And when I walk around in the power armor, it's like this is a cakewalk. But then you don't find a ton of fusion cells, and they don't make it so you can recharge the fusion cells you have, at least yet where I'm at. So I'm thinking, I'm like, man, I get to a mission where I really need this sucker. I'm out of fusion cells. So then I got to grind for fusion cells. So it sucks. It sucks because, like, when I got the people to go to Sanctuary, I was like, screw that. Like, once I got that heavy freaking mech suit, I was like, it's on. It is on. And then I found like another mech suit somewhere. I disassembled that mech suit and then put the pieces on to my current mech suit. So I got like this mixed mech suit, and it's great, but I don't want to run around in it all the time because you don't just find fusion cells just everywhere. Like, you find a fusion cell once every 3 hours at best, because I have 4, And I've been looking around, like scrounging, like nothing. Like, and you can't build them. So anyway, so I've been playing the Warframe. So if you want to play Warframe with me, I'm Dark Logos Prime on PSN. And I'm not on Xbox Live really anymore, so which is sort of sad. But yeah, I'm Dark Logos Prime. So hit me up. Now be like, yeah, and your account got hacked. Blah. And also just let people know my Starting Over podcast account is email is not linked to my PlayStation. So it's a super secret email that people will not know. So yeah. All right. That's it. Thank you for listening. Happy New Year, my listeners. And remember, we all got to start over sometime. Yeah.